Leave supporter. OK, are you desperate to get your hands on this letter that Mrs May's written to get clues about the negotiating strategy?
I don't think it's going to give us any clues. I mean, it's really just, as you say, serving divorce papers. I think the more important thing to remember here is that there are 19,000 articles, according to the Commons Library, pieces of legislation that are going to be coming back from Europe. It's the greatest cut and paste job, I think, that we've ever seen. And
you know, EU legislation that we're going to import into British
Pretty much, yeah, absolutely.
We're not going to do that until we get the Great Reform Bill. That's not what today's about. Today is about triggering
it's about the trigger, but then there
period.
will be the Great Reform Bill or the Great Power Grab. And there are, you know, a number of academics who've come out and said that they're very concerned about the fact that the government is going to change legislation, bring back power from places like Scotland. This is, you know, a real bone of contention. And there is a question about whether we will get to properly scrutinise that legislation, have proper debate and vote on it. Let's take the Scotland Act, for example. There was 147 amendments to the Scotland Act. We had Scotland Bill. We were able to push 7 votes, and it takes, you know, that took over 2.5 hours.
OK, so you're worried about time and lack of scrutiny. What are you looking forward to today,
What I'm looking forward to is I'm less worried about what I think is a red tape challenge, and clearly it's an issue, but we don't have to solve that overnight. But for me, it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for trade, great opportunity for large business. We will have international trade agreements with countries we've never been able to have bilateral agreements with before. For our smaller businesses, they get a win too, because they will be able to start recreating supply chains within the United Kingdom for some of our larger companies who want now to build in Britain rather than import parts for the main product into the UK. And we also have an opportunity for import substitution, and the food industry has been looking at this very carefully, because our challenge has been, because of the rules and regulations, we've not really been able to pull together all our food businesses and look at how we can actually industrialise, and I don't mean make it into a factory, but I do mean make it efficient, bring in some of the high tech, which we can do, but together we can afford it. So there is a huge opportunity, and I'm really pleased that...
I mean, some of that stuff that you've... I can see your buoyancy and your joy. Some of that stuff that you've mentioned, British businesses can do right now. Sarah Olney from the Lib Dems.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, today is obviously the start of a process, but the problem is we don't know what the end of it is. And Anne-Marie's talking like all this marvellous things that are going to happen, but we just don't know. Today we start the process of a negotiation. At some point there will be some agreement, but we still don't know who's going to make the decision about whether we accept those terms or not. We've always said that we think that should be the people should get the final vote on the terms, but Theresa May has refused to make any commitments on this. And I think that's really, really important, because yes, the country voted to leave the European Union last June, but we still don't know what they were voting for. We still don't know what our future looks like. And
OK, well, let's ask Gisela Stewart then, a Labour MP. I mean, do you know what people voted for?
Well, we were quite clear in the entire campaign, which I chaired, is that this was about taking back control over your borders, your taxes, your laws and your trade negotiations. And what will happen after today is both the United Kingdom and the European Union will have to take a new, fresh look at itself. And it is a huge opportunity for national renewal, but also for the European Union to address some of their problems. If we are grown up about these negotiations, then we will take things like workers' rights, all those important things which are currently enshrined in EU legislation, take them into UK legislation. There's a process of saying we have the final say on this. But the end game for me is we have to make those communities who voted in large numbers to leave by far more resilient, so they can actually withstand the threats of globalisation.
On the food and drink industry that Anne-Marie mentions, is, you know, and I've met with the food and drink industry and federation, and they are very concerned about regulation, because at the moment we have unified regulation. We're not necessarily going to have that.
We can easily import and bring stuff in.
And when we're looking at some of the exports, particularly, you know, from Scotland, 2 of the UK's biggest exports are salmon and whisky. If we're in the position where there is not unified regulation and there are not unified systems, we're going to have stuff stuck at the border. Now, that seems somewhat
But if we
extreme,
look at more broadly...
And you talk about trade deals can take years.
Can I ask you?
No, they don't take years.
They do take years. Sorry, that's not being doom and gloomy. They do take years.
Only because you've been talking about trade deals which try to get 28 people to agree, 28 countries to agree. It is going to be relatively straightforward. I'm not saying it's going to be a walk in the park, but you said earlier that these were things we could do before. That's simply not right. We could not enter into bilateral agreements with other countries. So that is new, and 90% of the opportunities...
Hang on, Mrs May wants today to effectively draw a line under the divisions caused by the referendum. Can that happen, Sarah Orme?
Well, it very much depends on her approach, and I think one of the things that really concerns me is that the agenda at the moment is very much being driven by the Brexiteers, by the really sort of the right-wing levers, and I think if she's being really honest about wanting to be more consensual, then she needs to start listening to the voices of those who want it to remain.
Does it help that the Chancellor has signalled today that there will be no cut-off from today to the rights of EU nationals arriving in Britain in the next couple of years? Today's not being seen as a cut-off point. Is that a kind of softening of a position?
I guess so, but I mean, what we've always asked for is a unilateral guarantee for the rights of EU citizens to remain in this country, and we think that would be an excellent way to start off negotiations because it would show that Britain was serious about maintaining good relationships with the EU.
Anne-Marie, as a Conservative MP, does it make you cross when you hear your Chancellor saying, we can't have our cake and eat it?
Why would it make me cross? I mean, that's a very common saying. Give me a context. In what sense do you want to give me the example?
He's making it clear that there are going to be a lot of compromises over the next couple of years. Sometimes when you listen to Leave campaigners, they make the negotiations sound like a walk in the park.
No, I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park, but I also don't think we've got the doom and gloom scenario that we are going to have to give away a lot to get the freedom that we fought for. And I think the focus on this, 60 billion is
the so-called exit bill.
Exactly. I mean, that's completely unreal. I mean, the figure is far from clear in terms of how it's being calculated.
But you accept that Britain has to pay its bills, its liabilities, what it's promised.
I think you will find that in any divorce, and I'm sure many of us have experienced this,
divorce?
Oh, absolutely.
Speak for
it's
yourself.
a negotiation. Well, look at you. But I think what we do is we actually look at what the liabilities are and the assets for both parties, and then look at what's fair. But what I don't think is fair is that we in the UK should be paying for benefits that we are not going to receive after we have left. So yes, in this next 2 years, clearly we should.
What about paying in order to get access for a particular sector?